human rights tribunal or others has to step up to help.
A Mi'kmaq woman has temporarily won her fight against Jordan's principle.
The kind of working definition that I propose for medical colonialism is basically a culture or ideology rooted in anti-Indigenous systemic racism.
And a university in Quebec hopes to tackle colonialism within the healthcare system, one student at a time. Good evening, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news. In a late afternoon post on X, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says U.S. President Donald Trump has paused tariffs against Canada for 30 days so Canada and the U.S. can work together. Trudeau says it comes after Canada has implemented $1.3 billion in a plan to increase security around Canada's border and an additional $200 million for a new intelligence directive against organized crime and fentanyl. Meanwhile, Trudeau won't be Canada's leader for much longer. All this tariff talk today as the Liberals are set to elect a new leader and ultimately a new Prime Minister next month. Today, Liberal leadership hopeful Mark Carney had this to say about Trump's threats.
We love America. We love Americans. This is, as I say, one of the greatest relationships in the world. We want it to continue, but if it's changing, we too will change. And I would say, if I can, Jake, I would say the mood of the country has moved from one of confusion to a sense of betrayal, and now very much to a sense of resolve. And the resolve from Canadians is if the U.S. has changed, if it's changed its priorities, how the U.S. is going to treat us, we'll move forward on our own.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe addressed the looming tariff threats, saying his province is among those taking action on border security and the availability of drugs, specifically fentanyl, as requested by the Trump administration. Moe has been very reluctant to consider tariffs against American products, saying it's a no-win situation. Moe also talking about national security issues and his suggestion that the border agency be put under the control of the Canadian military until the situation is resolved.
I would point to a proposal that I had provided on one of our First Ministers' meetings and provided publicly, where Canada would have the opportunity to pull the Canadian Border Security Agency, or the CBSA, in under our military. It would provide two things immediately. One, provide the availability for troops along our border, the 49th parallel between Canada and the U.S., thereby addressing concerns that President Trump has raised. And two, would bring our CBSA funding in under the military investment, would be part of ensuring we are working towards our 2% NATO commitment that we have.
Meanwhile, Newfoundland and Labrador is removing American alcohol off store shelves as of midnight. Premier Andrew Furey says Trump's tariffs are the actions of a bully, and Canada needs to stand strong and united.
This is not an action we want to do. Certainly, again, they are our most trusted allies, our best friends, and in my case, their family. My wife is an American. I did my surgical training in the United States. This hurts. It hurts on both sides of the border. But as Canadians, we didn't ask for this, but the moment demands that we respond to this.
To Ontario now, where a new report has just been released that looks into the economic contributions of Indigenous peoples and businesses in the Thunder Bay area. It found the total impact of Indigenous economic output in 2020 was $1.55 billion. The Indigenous economic impact analysis of Thunder Bay found the contributions were impressive, but points out more can be done to further promote Indigenous prosperity. The study also hoped that highlighting the economic contributions of Indigenous peoples would challenge stereotypes against Indigenous people. Public administration was the sector with the largest Indigenous impact. More than a dozen First Nations and Métis organizations have offices in the city. Education services was another sector highlighted, with more than 1,000 Indigenous students attending Lakehead University alone. The Manitoba RCMP have responded to a video circulating on social media depicting an officer on a man's chest outside a residence in Mosogayagan Cree Nation. A warning that this video may be disturbing to some viewers. The video shows an RCMP officer standing on a man's chest and stomach while the man was lying on his back. On Monday afternoon, after being contacted by APTN and the public, RCMP issued a press release about the incident. It states that on Friday at around 4:40 a.m., Moose Lake RCMP responded to an assault at a residence on the Mosagayagan Cree Nation. Officers attempted to arrest a male suspect, but he resisted and became combative. They then deployed a conductive energy weapon on him and recruited a third officer to carry out the arrest. 22-year-old Matthew Kagigimik of the PAW has been charged with 2 counts of resisting arrest, 4 counts of assault causing bodily harm, 2 counts of assault on a police officer, and assault while choking. Manitoba RCMP said they are aware of the video showing a small portion of the arrest and that no injuries were reported. The Independent Investigations Unit has been notified of the incident. In Saskatchewan, the man who brutally attacked and nearly killed a homeless woman in Prince Albert has been granted statutory release. Leslie Black attacked Marlene Bird in April of 2014. He cut, burned, and sexually assaulted Bird. The attack left her with such severe injuries that both of her legs had to be amputated. Marlene Bird later passed away in 2017 due to heart, liver, and kidney failure. Black was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 11 years. His statutory release comes with conditions, including moving into a halfway house, following a curfew, no substance use, and counseling. The Parole Board of Canada says Black is at a moderate to high risk for sexual or violent reoffending. He will be under supervision for the next 10 years and was approved to live in Saskatchewan or northern BC. A judge in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan is in the middle of deciding whether or not the federal government failed to support 2 Northern First Nations during the ongoing opioid crisis. In the fall of 2023, the Lac La Ronge Indian Band and the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation filed a class action lawsuit against the federal government, saying that the medicine chest provisions in Treaty 6 should have been prompted the feds to support and provide medical care. Both Lac La Ronge and Peter Ballantine want the federal government to create a plan to help cover emergency help to deal with the opioid crisis and provide treatment programs and addiction support with Indigenous healing practices at the center. The judge has, for now, reserved his decision. The RCMP in Alberta is asking the public's help in finding a man who has been charged with second-degree murder following a death last November on the Ochis First Nation, 250 kilometers northwest of Calgary. RCMP say 27-year-old Derek Fazar Whitford is armed and considered dangerous and is wanted in connection to the killing of 18-year-old Travis Strawberry from Ochis. Police say Whitford may be in Ochis or the Sunchild First Nation, but he could also be in Red Deer or Edmonton. RCMP say last November, Strawberry was killed in Ochis and his body was later found in a wooded area in Clearwater County. Whitford is also wanted for several other unrelated charges, including robbery and firearm offenses. If you see Whitford, do not approach him. Instead, call 911 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Canada's Attorney General has filed a statement of defense against a land claim made by the Dakota Teepee First Nation in Manitoba. In August, Dakota Teepee filed a lawsuit claiming the Forks, a National Historic Site in central Winnipeg, is their unceded territory. In the statement of claim, they sought legal title to the land, compensation for past use, and consultation on future development. The suit names Canada's Attorney General, the province, the city, and 2 corporations as defendants. A statement of defense filed by Canada's Attorney General on January 13th argues Dakota Teepee has not provided enough evidence for Aboriginal title to the Forks land. However, in a Monday phone call with APTN, Dakota Teepee Chief Dennis Pache said they're not backing down.
We're moving ahead. We have our archives. We have our source documents that prove and state otherwise about our history. We know our history, and that's why we're confident moving forward with the claims that we're making. We do have Aboriginal title, and we do have unceded territory. So there's lot of precedences in courts, and every day there's a court decision that favors the government's honor regarding reconciliation even.
On the East Coast now, a Mi'kmaq woman won a temporary victory in federal court last week. Mary Isaac was on the brink of losing funding through Jordan's principle to help raise her kids, as Indigenous services was set to end it on January 31st. But she will continue to receive funding through a temporary court order until her case is heard in full sometime in the future. Isaac is a single parent with 3 children who are neurodivergent. She has cerebral palsy and requires a wheelchair and was raising her children independently. After a car accident, Isaac received extended support under Jordan's principle. Last August, Indigenous Services said it would end that support, saying the province should step in. But Isaac could not get provincial support. Isaac filed a lawsuit requesting long-term care for her children and to find accessible housing. Her lawyer, David Taylor, says Indigenous Services' decision was unfair.
Is because sometimes First Nations kids have needs that are so different from non-First Nations kids that no government is providing the service that they need. And so when that's the case, the federal government, because of the Human Rights Tribunal orders, has to step up to help.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. When we come back, we'll take you to a number of universities that are looking to indigenize the medical and journalism classrooms. We're back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. A course covering medical colonialism just launched at McGill University in Montreal. As APTN's Savannah Craig reports, the course teaches students about systemic anti-Indigenous racism in Canada's healthcare system.
How you do migrant justice while also acknowledging and being in solidarity with Indigenous sovereignty.
Students are listening intently to just one example of medical colonialism.
These are tough questions, but they're important questions to grapple with.
They're participating in a course that's the first of its kind at both McGill University and in Quebec.
The kind of working definition that I propose for medical colonialism is basically a culture or ideology rooted in anti-Indigenous systemic racism that uses medical practices or policies to establish, maintain, or advance a genocidal colonial project.
Samir Shaheen Hussein is the instructor of this course. He works as a pediatric emergency physician and wants to take action to prevent medical colonialism.
If you're walking around Montreal, you'll see, for example, Inuit folks who are from Nunavik but who are here. Like, that's forced migration, right?
In 2020, Shaheen Hussein published a book that looks at forced displacement endured by Indigenous children in Canada's medical system.
In many cases, they're not coming because they wanted to come. They're coming because there are all kinds of issues in terms of political, social, economic forces that resulted in them migrating here.
The course is called Confronting Medical Colonialism. It focuses on systemic racism in Canada's healthcare system. For example, students will learn about Joyce Echaquan and the principal named after her. Echaquan live-streamed racist treatment she received from nurses in a hospital in Joliet, Quebec, hours before her death. Jennifer Petitquet-Dufresne is executive director of the Joyce's principal office.
Le principe de Joyce, dans le fond, il vise à garantir aux personnes autochtones un droit d'accès équitable à tous les services de santé et services sociaux, de les recevoir en fait sans aucune discrimination afin de pouvoir jouir du meilleur état de santé possible, que ce soit physique, mental, émotionnel et spirituel.
With the provincial government denying the existence of institutional racism in Quebec, Petitquet-Dufresne says a course like this will end medical colonialism.
Le fait de pouvoir voir comment ce colonialisme médical-là a impacté la santé des personnes autochtones, ça va permettre aussi aux intervenants de se voir aller puis d'entamer ce processus de réflexion-là sur est-ce que je suis en train de le reproduire puis comment je peux faire pour ne pas le reproduire.
The development and carrying out of the course has been a collaboration between Indigenous scholars, healthcare workers, and activists, including graduate student and research coordinator Sydney Leggett.
I kind of reviewed some of the materials he was developing in the course outline and just helped with some general direction based off both lessons learned through the course and just experiences as both a student in the department and as an Indigenous person existing in the space.
Indigenous perspectives have been included in the development of the course, and guest lecturers have been invited each week to speak.
We know nursing has played a huge part in historical and ongoing harms, from Indian hospitals to the videos you saw with Joyce Echaquan.
José Lavallee is the director of the Office of Social Accountability in Nursing.
So I just wanted to maybe just touch back into cultural safety.
She came to the class to discuss the importance of cultural safety in healthcare.
So we have a variety of students in these spaces having these conversations with different educational backgrounds, and they're going to take this information into their educational spaces where they are, and also into their careers moving forward.
Shaheen Hussain says his goal is to not only identify medical colonialism, but to provide equal access to healthcare for all Indigenous people in Canada.
I think one of our responsibilities, at least for me as a health worker, to make sure that what Joyce went through does not happen ever again.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
Carleton University's School of Journalism and Communication in Ottawa has announced its plans for a new program for Indigenous students. APTN video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz has more on this story.
On January 29th, Carleton University launched their certificate program in journalism in Indigenous communities. This one-year program will allow Indigenous students to learn the basics of journalism in the comforts of their own communities.
Today is a historic day. Canada's first journalism school affirms its commitments to the First Peoples of the land.
emceeing the launch was Duncan McHugh, an award-winning CBC journalist and associate professor at Carleton University School of Journalism and Communication. McHugh is a Anishinaabe and a member of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation in southern Ontario. With 25 years in the business, McHugh can sum up his biggest takeaway from reporting in Indigenous communities in one word to his students.
But it all boils down to respect. Because for so long, our people have not been treated with respect from outsiders. And that is what needs to change with journalism. But we have to understand this history of disrespect that our peoples have experienced when it comes to interacting with all kinds of outsiders, including journalists, and start to act with respect.
Partnering with Carleton University is the First Nation Technical Institute, a not-for-profit organization that specializes in post-secondary Indigenous learning. Adam Hopkins, Academic Senior Vice President, explained the process of students learning in their own communities.
The whole idea of this program is to take the program to the learner and to create space that allows them to keep their commitments. So this program and the programs that Indigenous Institutes offered are focused completely on that typical learner. Bring the programming to them, make sure that the supports are in place to identify what's important to them, and think of really creative ways to ensure that they're successful and that we're doing everything we can be doing to make sure they're successful.
Finally, Hopkins gave his opinion on why it's important to him for Indigenous stories to be told by Indigenous storytellers.
It says to me that the stories that our learners will tell that are in this program are going to be grounded in our ways of knowing. They're going to be grounded in the relationship that we as Indigenous people have to the land, because our stories, our knowledges, are based on place-based knowledge and are tied directly to the land and the relationship that we have with the land.
The first group of students start the program in September 2025. Bruce de la Cruz, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Great story, Bruce. An 11,000-year-old First Nation settlement has been found in Saskatchewan. That story when we come back after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This was near Falcon Lake, Manitoba, where James Moore got this amazing picture of a deer having a little nibble on some local vegetation. Thanks, James, for that picture. If you would like to be featured as our next photo of the day, send us your photos to share at aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east, rain in St. John's at 5, Charlottetown -10. Nuujjuaq -21, Nain -13. Quebec City -7, St. Jovite -9. -3 in Toronto, London -3. Sioux Lookout -17, Sun in Thunder Bay at -12. Churchill -19, Thompson, partly cloudy at -20. -18 in Gimli, Princess Harbour -18. -20 in Regina, Saskatoon -24. Meadow Lake -24, La Ronge -22. -23 in High Level, Fort McMurray -21. -25 in Red Deer, Medicine Hat -22. Penticton -4, Kamloops -8. Fort Nelson -23, Dease Lake -24. -12 in Whitehorse, Watson Lake -30. -19 in Fort Simpson, Wattie -10. Fort McPherson -8, Colville Lake -9. -18 in Arviat, Whale Cove -20. Iqaluit -29, Nagulik -26. Sturgeon Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan, just northwest of Prince Albert, has discovered a pre-contact settlement dating back 11,000 years. After an archaeologist identified the site, Sturgeon Lake is now focusing on preserving the findings. The site was named Assowananik, meaning place of crossing. It's located 5 kilometers north of Prince Albert along the North Saskatchewan River. The site was a long-term settlement evidenced by stone tools, fire pits, and materials used in tool making. Items at the site also show Indigenous hunters strategically harvested bison, including the extinct bison Antiquus, which weighed up to 2,000 kilograms. The Assowananik Council is a collection of elders and community members that's been set up to work with archaeologists to preserve the site and seek funding for ongoing research, education, tourism, and community engagement. So when our elders say we've been here for thousands of years, they're probably right. And that's your evening newscast for this Monday, February 3rd. We're back again for your daytime cast tomorrow. Make sure to join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.